Hey everybody, Stephen Bogren here from Pro Physique. Today what I wanted to talk about is, are you ready to diet? So what's up everybody? Happy Wednesday. It is the 21st, I believe. Yeah. So been a little quiet lately, getting ready for the meet, doing the meet, trying to come back after the meet. If you can't tell, got a little cold. We're fighting off right now as well. So it's been an interesting week and a half, 2 weeks lately. Just trying to perform and get ready. Of course, if you know me, you know that I also am in prep for a bodybuilding show as well right now. So it's been one of those things where we also just cut calories quite a bit, and we made a pretty aggressive cut. So everything in general, energy is pretty low, so we've been working through it. But I think that's a little bit of a good place to segue into today's topic that I wanted to talk about, which is, are you ready to diet? Now, I think a lot of people believe that they are ready to diet. A lot of people want to lose body fat. A lot of people are in the mindset that they need to diet down, fat loss phase, right? Traditional usage of the word. But a lot of people, unfortunately, I don't believe are in a good place to diet. And we're going to talk a little bit about why today. So let's go with the easy answer first, which is metabolism, metabolic rate, activity level. And this isn't for everybody, but say you have been eating very low calorie for a long time. You've never really taken the time to get off of a diet. So you're eating low calorie, say your body weight is 120 and you're eating probably 800 to 1,000 calories a day. You're doing a lot of cardio, you're already active. You're not in a good place to diet. You're not in a good place to diet because of the fact that there is nothing to do. There's no extra cardio we can add that's feasible, right? Remember, we still have to have a life. We have to work. We have to spend time with our loved ones. We have to de-stress and take care of ourselves. So we can't add any more cardio. We simply don't have the time, right? It's not feasible. We can't take away any more calories. It's no longer feasible there because now we are getting to a dangerously low levels, right? We take away from fats. We no longer have enough fats in the diet. We take away we probably don't even have really many carbs to work with as it is. We don't want to take away from protein because we know that protein helps to monitor protein sparing, right? It helps us to build muscle, rebuild, and recover from training sessions. So in terms of what we're able to do dietarily and with cardio, we don't have any room left to work with, or we have very little room left to work with, okay? Your metabolism, your body has adapted to those low calorie intakes and that high amount of cardio, so much so that what we have to do with somebody in this case is to increase calories, decrease cardio, and then really maintain there for a while. Because the body doesn't just adapt all of a sudden, right? It doesn't just go back to like, okay, hey, so now that you've eaten 2,000 calories a day for 2 weeks, we can go back down to 1,500 again and then lose weight. It just doesn't work like that. So we want to slowly, methodically work our way back up, okay? This even comes from a time like, say you just ended a diet, right? Say we had some bingings or some overeatings, we weren't tracking, we weren't paying attention, and weight's back up. But diet has been very inconsistent, right? What we can try and do is get back to a consistent level and see if your body responds, which most people, you're probably not going to see a great response, but we'll see an initial drop, right? Just because of being back online and consistent again. Again, what we have to do is when we because we're normally starting from close to where we ended the diet at this point, so very little room to work with again. We have to go the other way. So remember, when you're coming off of a diet, if you go out, if you overeat and put on a lot of body weight quickly, it's probably going to be a while before you're ready to diet again to get that taken care of. And if we never pay attention, it's going to be an even longer amount of time before we are ready to deal with that. This next point that I want to make I think it's very much more difficult for a lot of people to understand or really grasp. Like, I think people get it, like they know, but the reality of knowing it and then like really putting it into practice are two very different things. And I want to talk about being psychologically ready to diet. I think this one is much more difficult for people to grasp and to really like bring in and to accept that they might not psychologically be ready to enter a fat loss phase. So one of the main things that psychologically will create issues, right, is inability to adhere to set macros, right, or a set calorie intake. If psychologically we're having so many issues that we cannot be consistent on any calorie intake, we're not ready for a diet. Because there is no point in prescribing anybody any macros if they cannot hit them. And so if you're having issues with consistency, with overeating, with undereating, whatever it may be, understand that before you can ever look at going into a set phase for fat loss or reversal or whatever it might be, the real issue is that you have to get to a place of consistency where you're in control of your food intakes. And that can be very, very difficult. That in and of itself can be a huge journey in major success. But understand that we as coaches, we cannot do anything for you if you're not consistent with what you're doing. Everything that we do, any changes that we make, it all is based on the foundation of a consistent calorie intake, right? Otherwise, the changes we make are shots in the dark. We're just trying to hit the side of the barn at this point. And so dealing with that psychological readiness can mean a lot of different things. What I've found more often than not is that it's almost always associated with body image and how you feel about yourself. And while I am not a psychiatrist, I don't specialize in, the body image realm of psychology. I would like to think that I have some sort of insight into what's going on and some ways to help moderate and deal with it. So now it might not deal with the underlying issue, which that's going to be something that you'll need to see somebody a bit more qualified about. But coping mechanisms can always help us to get through the day or to get through phases of life as well. Just like we all had coping mechanisms as kids that helped us as children to get through life that might now be holding us up as adults, we can do the same thing as adults. It might only be a Band-Aid, but sometimes a Band-Aid is better than just leaving a wound open. So let's talk about some of the things that I think can be a huge help in terms of like your body image, right? And dealing with that. I think the first and foremost one, and a lot of people probably won't like this, is getting the hell away from social media. Get off Instagram, get off Pinterest, get off Facebook. Stop following all the people that only post pictures of themselves when they're in really good shape and when they're shredded. Stop only, paying attention to what the magazines are telling you, what the hot this week people are telling you, whatever it might be. Get away from Cosmo, get away from all that crap ass garbage, because that's what it is. If you're already having issues with how you feel about yourself, your own self-worth and how you look, and basing your worth on how you look, those media outlets, those sources of psychological input are only going to make it worse. And let's be real, like your self-worth has absolutely nothing to do with how you look, right? I can be 350 pounds, I am worth just as much as a human being and what I have to offer society and the world as I am at 180, 175, 100. It doesn't matter, right? So we want to be very aware that our worth comes from somewhere that isn't how we look, right? We have no control over how we look anyways. Like my face, I don't have any control over. I have control over my diet, right? How much I want to exercise. I don't have control over my humerus length or the length of my femurs. My height, like I don't have any control over those. So there's a lot of aspects of that are beyond our control. Why would we ever base our worth on something like that? Your worth is so much more than this or this, okay? And so getting away from some of those social media outlets and some of those psychologically trashy inputs can be a huge, huge help. Another thing that we can do is maybe not weigh in so often, right? If we're uncomfortable with a number we see on the scale, it's important that we see that if we're working with somebody to help us lose weight, so that we have the data for if we're losing weight, right? Otherwise, how do we know if it's working? But it doesn't mean we have to do it every day. It doesn't mean we even have to do it every other day. It might just mean we do it once a week. Getting away from that negative stimulus, the thing that brings up all those negative feelings, that can always help as well, right? So it might not be that we're actually getting rid of it completely, but we're doing enough to be objective so that we can still sort of deal with it in terms of going into a fat loss and having that data. But we're not overly doing it every day to where we're now becoming obsessive about it. And we continually have that negative stimulus for how we feel about ourselves. And so that's another thing that we want to take into account. 3, support groups. There are support groups. You don't want to allow yourself to be alone when you're trying to deal with body image and eating disorders. There are a ton of people out there who have managed to recover and are in recovery and are doing better, and they can share their stories with you and their experiences. And whereas maybe that person's coping mechanisms or how they dealt with it might not help you, but someone else might be able to. And so maybe the way that, Sally Sue or Bobby Jean or Dean has been able to deal with their eating disorders and body image issues, maybe that person's story, maybe their coping mechanisms work for you. So don't be afraid to open up and to be a little bit vulnerable in the right places, right? So find some people that are going through the same things, that are sharing those experiences, that you can connect with to help support one another through it. Sometimes simply knowing that you're not alone can be a huge, huge benefit. Lastly, of course, see a psychiatrist about it. Talk to somebody, get some talk therapy. Don't be afraid to seek help if you need it. Guys, I know that this is a very, very complex issue. I know that this has barely scratched the surface, but it's something that I definitely feel needs to be said and talked about a little bit more often, because it is not uncommon, and so many more people deal with it and struggle than we like to admit. So that's it, guys. I encourage you, find healthy coping mechanisms and talk to somebody. Let's have a great week. The year is still young. Let's kick some ass. Have a great one, okay?